I'm a photographer and watercolor artist with chronic health challenges, POTS, and wrist strength issues. Let's talk about paint safety real quick while I swatch out the Van Gogh palette. When you are watercoloring, if you are painting with paints like cobalt or cadmium, then you need to follow safe studio practices. Things like not leaving your water container out where your pets can get to it, washing your hands when you are done painting, and not eating and drinking water while you are painting. I have health challenges, which means I drink a lot of water and I need to take prescription blood pressure medicine when it's time without getting up and going and washing my hands first. I can't get up and wash my hands before drinking water and taking medicines, so I choose not to have cobalts and cadmiums in my paint palette. It's generally pretty easy to avoid these. That's what I do. You look for two different areas. First is the front of the tube of paint, or if you have a set like this, it will have a list of what is in each paint. And you go to this website that I found, Artist Creation. I will link it for you. And you can look up, is this paint rated A or B or C? And I use paints that are rated A for safety. And by paint, I mean like what are the individual pigments in your paint. Good quality paints will tell you what's in them. If you're looking at an ultramarine, for example, either on the back of your tube of paint or on the chart thing, like on the back of the box that comes with one of these types of sets, it will say, this is ultramarine, made with PB29, pigment P, blue, B, 29. And then you go to the chart and you scroll down until you find PB29. And then you go all the way over and it says A for safety, which means I would be fine with using that one. Sitting in bed, painting in the car, painting on the sofa. Oh, I'm not putting paint on the sofa. I mean painting while sitting on the sofa. Oh my gosh. Then you don't have to think about it. Especially if you have brain fog, it's really helpful to not have to think about it. To not have to think, oh, did I wash my hands? I need to wash my hands. What's clean? What's not clean? That's a whole process. I lost what paint color I was on. So I'm swatching out the Van Gogh palette today because it doesn't have any cobalts or cadmiums in it. So you can go ahead and buy it, not have to remove paints that are in it. I have bought Rosa sets, and even buying a set and pulling out the cobalts and the cadmiums from the Rosa set is still less expensive than buying the individual pans of paint. If you're trying to follow along with a teacher and they're using a cadmium or a cobalt, generally speaking, cadmiums are more opaque. From my understanding, I haven't done much painting with cobalts and cadmiums, so I understand that. And I think I said at the beginning, I'm not a medical professional of any kind, so like I don't know anything, but this is what I've researched. But if it says use cadmium lemon, then you can just use a lemon that doesn't have cadmium in it. If it says cadmium yellow light, then something like a Jackson's yellow light, a Sennelier yellow light, a Hansa yellow light, Joe's yellow, something like that would be a good primary yellow. There's also one called primary yellow. Any of those would be this kind of medium color in the middle that's not very orangey and not very lemony or greenish, you know, in between primary yellow. And then if it says deep, so cadmium yellow deep. Deep doesn't mean dark. Deep means reddish. It took me a long time to learn that. If it says use cadmium yellow deep, then you want to use an orangey looking yellow. The same would hold true for reds. If it said, cadmium red deep, then you would go for the orange one, brain fog. And then for blues, if it says use a cobalt, you can maybe use something like an ultramarine. That should be liftable, the same, and be a similar kind of a color. And if it's a cerulean, which cerulean is cobalt, then you want to use a cerulean hue. Hue means it's not actually made with the paint name that's on the label. So, if it's a cerulean hue, that means it's not actually made with cerulean. but sometimes they'll use a pigment that I'm trying to avoid painting with to make the hue version of another paint that I'm trying to avoid. So just look at the pigment codes on the back of your tubes of paint, or your chart on the back of your box that came with your set of colors, and look up the individual pigment codes. Like, I wouldn't rely on it saying hue, H-U-E. I would still look up the pigments that are in it. But generally speaking, if it says hue, then it should be fine. Because hue means it's not made with what is on the label. So we were talking about cerulean hue. Cerulean is a cobalt. So cerulean hue is not a cobalt. You could also just look at the pigment codes that are on the back of wherever you're finding the information, the back of the tube or on the back of the pan of paint. I'm just going to wait here while I have brain fog. So if you were trying to paint with a cerulean, you can get cerulean hue, or you can get cinereous, which is from Sennelier. Those are made with a staining color, phthalo blue, compared to original cerulean pigment, which is a cobalt, which I'm trying to avoid. That paint is liftable, so it's more like an ultramarine. In the way that the paint is made, it's more liftable. So it's a bit harder to work with the hue version of a cerulean or a cobalt because it's made with a staining color, which is a phthalo. That's just something to be aware of if you're following someone who's using an actual cobalt and your paint isn't behaving the same as theirs because you have the hue version. It's because you're painting with a phthalo, which are staining. So you just need to know it might not do the same lifting thing off of the paper. You might put it there and then it might like stick to the paper because it's staining the paper, unlike something that's more liftable. So if you're struggling with that, you can use something like an ultramarine. Prussian is also a really good one. So this one's Prussian. This one's ultramarine that I've been talking about, and this one is Prussian. And you would want to just add a bit more water to make the color lighter, right? You can also, if you have a set that has white in it, mix your Prussian and your white together, and you would get something that looks like cerulean hue, but it's going to be made with a liftable color. You can do the same thing with your ultramarine. It's going to be more opaque if you're adding white to it, but cobalts are generally opaque. There was one that was a really pretty turquoise. I think it was called turquoise green from Sennelier, but it was like a cerulean cobalt color. And I made a similar looking color by using ultramarine turquoise and adding white to it. Ultramarine turquoise is a paint that I got from Daniel Smith, but you can just make it by using a phthalo green and an ultramarine mixed together. So liftable would be the ultramarine part of that, and then the opaque part would be the white part, and it kind of ended up looking like it, except it didn't have the same texture, but that's okay. If you're sad that you don't have the same texture from your paint that you were using because you were using a cobalt that had like a really granulating texture, goethite is very granulating, and Potter's Pink is very granulating, and Mars Black is very granulating, and like granulation as in like lots of texture. The paint pigment particles all settle different in the water and create this like cool texture when it dries. Cobalts, I think, have a lot of that texture to them, so you can use one of these other paints. Goethite, Mars Black, Potter's Pink, and get the same kind of texture. They'll be a different color, but you can also like mix it with a blue and get a kind of a color that you want. Ended up talking instead of painting. One of the things that I have also been removing from my paints is nickel. So it's, heavy metals. Cobalts, cadmiums, heavy metals. So one of the other colors that I was looking for an alternative for was a sap or an olive. Nickel is one of the heavy metal pigments that I decided to remove. So I am using Da Vinci olive and sap, American Journey olive and sap, which those are very similar. I would just use them interchangeably. And M-gram sap, not their olive. And those are the ones that I found that don't have nickel in them for my sap and my olive color. This one in the Van Gogh set doesn't have nickel in it. Nickel's a heavy metal, so I wanted to not have that in there. So you can pull up the Artist Creation website and go to yellow and then look at the 150s. I think it's like from 150 to 154, and read which ones are nickel and which ones are not. And you can find that on Artist Creation's website under yellow and then go to the 150s area. It's the same reason that I stopped using New Gamboge and I'm using Indian Yellow instead. And Indian Yellow is like PY 110, so it's fine. But it's pretty simple to just look at what pigments are in your paints, take the pigment code and look it up on the website, and then read, is this one safe, is this one not safe? And then decide for yourself. You may just want to remove cobalts and cadmiums, but I've decided I also want to remove the nickel and the heavy metal. I want to be able to drink water while I am painting and stop and take medicines and not have to wash my hands. I have no idea what happened to this last color in my pan, why is there a hole there? What was there? Was there a black there? Why is there a paint missing? Anyway, that means that's the rest of this. I hope this is all really helpful. Make sure to check out the link that I put in the description. I'm not affiliated with them at all, but I found them to be a really helpful website to research all of this for myself as I've been trying to figure this all out, because I have health stuff and I'm going to sit in bed and paint and I'm going to take medicines and I need paints that I don't have to follow safe studio practices with so that I can take my medicines while sitting in bed and paint. I love painting. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Oh, did you see I put a sticker on it?